Good morning. Ken Bain here with Jochen Fahr of Fahr Brewery, and we're going to spend about a half hour together getting to know what has been successful for him in operating his business in the last 5 or 6 years. And early indications and prep call sounds like he's had a lot of fun in the last couple of years, which might be interesting to learn about because not every business owner has had a lot of fun in the last 2 years. So Ken Bain, business leadership coach, and welcome, Mr. Fahr, Mr. Jochen Fahr.
Oh.
So please share with the world a little bit about yourself and any specials you kind of have on that you would like to tell the world about. That's I don't know, maybe a beer of the day or some stuff that you have coming up that you would like the world to know about.
Well, we're a German brewery in Turner Valley, about 40 minutes outside Calgary, and been around since 2016. And we've won a couple of awards in the meantime with our beers, and I think we're doing things right when we say that we just focus on the traditional, actually the beer flavored beers. A little bit of myself. I grew up born and raised in Germany, came here to do a year in undergrad, and went back to Germany, finished my undergrad, came back here for my grad school. Spent a couple of years as an employee out here, and then I said, nope, I'm not a terrible employee. I'm gonna make my own brewery, and that's how really the company started.
Good for you. What is your education background, and did you actually work in the brewery industry before starting Fahr Beer?
No, I haven't, but like I've been around beer all my life. So my dad used to work for a German brewery for 40 years, and I was about 3 feet tall and on beer trucks and helping deliver beer. But I did an apprenticeship back in Germany in IT, and then I went into university after, and I did biochemical and biotechnology engineering there, or bioprocess engineering, which is essentially brewing. And then spent some time in neuroscience at the UFC during my year in exchange, if you will. And back to Germany, did some skin cream ingredient production with transgenic yeast, or research into it. And then came back to the UFC to start my medical science master's, and then I fast-tracked into a biomedical engineering program, doing a...
Fantastic. That's a lot of letters behind the name.
It's a lot, yeah. You know, PhD stands for permanent head damage, right?
Right on, eh? What's been the biggest impact of COVID on your business?
People drinking. In short, we ran into COVID at 4 or 5 employees. I don't even know anymore, and we are now currently at 19. So it's we've been revenue-wise and employee count-wise, we've essentially quintupled. And so that was probably the biggest impact that COVID had. Plus, getting the world's best Bavarian wheat ale in 2020. That was also good.
Well, winning awards always helps some popularity, notoriety, doesn't it?
It does.
What 1 or 2 actions did you take because of the pandemic and that you wouldn't otherwise taken?
Well, if I interpret your question as like during the pandemic, what I did was I didn't lay off anybody in my tap room, but I made them essentially delivery drivers. And what I offered to the greater Calgary area was no minimum orders and no delivery fee. And if ordered before 1 p.m., it's a same day delivery.
Oh.
So it cost me a little bit of money, but it was probably the most effective marketing scheme that I've ever done.
So you offered all of your clients in the greater Calgary area free same day delivery.
Anybody, like really, like you could have called us or go on our website and order 1 6-pack.
And you would have delivered it to North Calgary.
Yeah.
Wow, cool. And how did you share that messaging? How did you let the people know that you were doing such crazy, awesome things?
It was all social media.
It was, eh?
Yeah. And what it allowed me to do is allowed me to make use of my taproom staff that I had, because taproom was closed, of course, right?
Yeah.
They got some hours in, they got a little bit of mileage money as well. And then I was doing deliveries as well at the time. And I have a deckled car. So
Okay.
I was able to like drive up to somebody's house in a deckled car. And because everybody was at home in that time, I love cul-de-sacs, because I drive into one spot in a cul-de-sac and I see the next couple days I get orders from that cul-de-sac. Just because people saw the car and having dropped off beer.
So is that a marketing strategy that's sustainable, or it was a lost leader for a while to grow some market share, and now people are picking up on the brewery shelves?
Correct. It was a loss leader. And then, but I swallowed the cost as a marketing expense.
Sure.
And I have yet to find another marketing tool that I've been using that is equally as effective.
That is fascinating. I'm going to have to mull that one over. I'm looking forward to taking that conversation deeper. Been a business owner now.
It's powerful. I didn't think it would be that powerful, but it really is. It's also a special circumstance.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's lots of business owners that going into the pandemic put their head in the sand and waited for it to clear. And what part of the enjoyment I'm having in these conversations is learning all the things that people did to adjust their business, to make strategic changes, to either respect their staff and keep the employees and do the best they could. And then to get creative with the marketing to find other ways to get market share and pick up business. So what's been the biggest learning in 6 years of being a business owner?
The problems are always going to stay the same. It's just that the amounts change. That's a short answer to that one.
So if you have employee problems with 4 staff, you have employee challenges with 20 staff?
Yeah, it's cash flow is always the biggest challenge, right?
Okay.
Planning of expenses and cash outlays, and planning cash outlays is probably the biggest learning that I've been having. As an example, I mean, traditionally in the brewing world, January and February are the lowest sale months in the year, right? Because people come out of Christmas, it's dark, and there's dry February, dry January. Then there's a cancer society that says that any alcohol in any quantity causes cancer, which isn't great. And then, but also January and February is when we get we pre-purchase some of our ingredients. So, for example, in February, I get in hops from Germany. I import my hops from Germany directly from the producer or from the grower. And it's a significant outlay of cash when you buy the whole. It's one of the 4 ingredients that we use in beer, right? Water, hops, malt, and yeast. That hops piece we buy once a year.
Oh wow!
And so that we plan it so that we use it up over the course of the year, right?
Okay.
But when you do that, when that comes in and the payment comes due in the lowest selling month of the year, then that causes a little bit of stress on the cash flow.
Absolutely. And also, when you put your product on the shelves in liquor stores, is there a time lag in the distribution part too when you get paid? So do you put it through, is it Alberta Connect, and then it sits on their shelves before it gets paid to you?
So as much as liquor producers complain about the system, it's also a good system.
Okay.
I complain about it too, but it has some good aspects. So basically what we are doing, we're using Liquor Connect for about 95% of our sales.
Okay.
Or distribution. So what we do is we produce a beer, we send it to Liquor Connect, which is in St. Albert, and then a licensee, a bar or liquor store can purchase from there.
Okay.
what happens is there's a 2-day lag between that sale. So they have it's a committed sale. The licensee has to prepay before they get the goods, right? And it's a consignment model. So once a week, I get the revenue from the week prior. So say this Friday, I'll get the revenue from all of the week last week.
Okay.
So I get one essentially I have one accounts receivable.
So it's not a horrible time lag. It can be up to a week.
Yeah, it's a week. It's Monday through Saturday is being paid on Friday. So it's technically whatever you sell on Monday has the longest lag time.
Okay. No, that's great.
But
Thank you.
it's still less than like 2
Which is
weeks.
good. It's not the oil patch with 120 days sometimes, right?
No.
What is the biggest challenge you face in the next 2 years? I would imagine it has to do with managing growth, culture, quadrupling staff. So there's got to be some team impact in there. What could you elaborate or kind of maybe say these are what I think the two biggest challenges are?
Mm-hmm. I think you have another question here about the biggest mistake I made. And
well, where do you want to go first?
this is the two of them combined.
Okay, let's do it.
So when we started this brewery, we started in a 5,400 square foot facility. We took that over in May 2017 and started brewing, did the interior renovations, and it was a welding shop before, so it had a lot of work that needed to be done. And started brewing out of there in October 2017. And we are too big for the space now.
Right.
So 5 years, and we've outgrown 5,400 square feet. So what we've done, and that's probably the biggest mistake I've made at this point, because now we're running out of space. It's impacting our capacity, and it's tricky. Like I keep saying, if this ever failed, I can always get a job as a narrow space forklift operator. So what we then did, so space is a challenge, cash flow is a challenge, right? So those are the two biggest challenges that we have at this point. So one of the solutions that we had to that is we actually we bought a patch of land from Turner Valley, from the town itself. 5 acres. It's currently in conditional sales status. And we hopefully by the end of the year, start building our own new facility.
Fantastic. How big is this one going to be?
25,000 square feet.
Holy cow. Good for you.
And with the goal of being carbon negative as a brewery. Like once it's operational, that we're carbon negative. And we have a real weight to it. It's just, again, when I look at cash flow, there's going to be it's a multi-million-dollar mortgage on a fairly new business. It's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, absolutely. But as they say in my business, if you're not a little nervous, it's probably easy and you're probably doing it wrong. So nervous is not bad. Keeps us honest.
And then it's time to move on from there.
Fantastic. What is one piece of advice you would share about growing or scaling a business to the entrepreneurs watching the video at home and wanting to learn something?
It's always tricky to balance growth and scale your business. We've exploded in 2020. We increased 2.5 times. In 2021, we doubled.
Right.
And looking back, and it's kept in hindsight, 2 years is not a trend. So people come out of a pandemic where they've been heavily drinking because we're sitting at home, and you see the pendulum swing in the other direction, and people stop drinking for a while, and if you're not prepared for those swings, then again you can run into cash flow problems, right? So while you have to be prepare for continuation of growth, there's also has to be a contingency of like what happens if that trend collapses, right? And that's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned.
So do you think the overall industry grew in the last 2 years? Alcohol consumption grew, and did your share, I guess asked another way too, is did you keep up with the growth of the industry, or were you able to grow by stealing some market share from the big guys?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
But then what happens is in January and February, and I talked to my industry peers and I talked to bigger liquor store chains as well. And the feedback is, especially the bigger guys, they're down double digits right now in percentage. Yeah, like January and February was the worst worst 2 months in the last 10 years, which is,
Alcohol sales.
yeah.
That is fascinating.
It really is. And it really shows how people were embracing the the dry January, dry February. It was combined with cold weather and restrictions still up. I've seen a big shift in my revenue, like from between September and October. So like the end of September, the new set of restrictions came in. We had a record-breaking September, and then since October, it just dropped, and it kind of like stayed depressed, and it's slowly starting to come around again as patio season starts, right?
Yep.
And it's an interest, like this industry is interesting because it's very cyclical. You can see January, February, March are usually depressed, and then like April, May is a steep incline, and then you have a generally good June, July. August generally drops because people go on vacation, and then September starts back up and kids go back to university. October is okay, and then November it drops, and then December is a Christmas party season. It's a funny way of like adjusting your business, right?
It kind of sounds like my waistline.
I
It
think
expands a little bit
pretty
September,
close.
October, gets a little better near Christmas, then expands again in Christmas, and then drops off in the new year.
The two of them might be correlated.
Yeah, maybe, eh? What would be on a smaller scale? What would be 2 or 3 things that you do either do again no matter what, or never do again? Kind of either like the top 3 lessons, not necessarily a big mistake, but yeah, here are the things I would definitely do again, even though they weren't huge, or 2 or 3 things like, yeah, they were smaller, but I definitely want to avoid those pitfalls.
What I would do again is starting a business for the future. So build it larger than you need at the time of your business start.
Okay.
Because it's always cheaper to buy a twice size machine than later on like selling your old machine and get a new one. Just time wise and money wise, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? That's what I would do again. Like I actually from the beginning I overscaled my equipment, I underscaled my space, which is a thing I would probably not do again.
So getting deeper on that, where's the balancing act that you found in capitalizing on the front end? Because even if you're twice as big, it's still out of pocket cash. They still have to afford the capitalization, or you simply put it into a quote unquote a mortgage payment, and the mortgage payment isn't as big, so it's easier to work through.
So I did a blended raise of funds essentially. So what I did was it was a combination of a Canadian small business financing loan and fundraising through shareholders.
Okay.
And then the shareholders, I had a convertible debenture essentially, which would allow me to either fully capitalize the debt from the shareholders,
Yep.
and then turn it into shares if they wanted to at a pre-specified share price, or if my cash flow would recover or like increase faster than the plan, I could buy them out. right? Essentially by buying the convertible part of their shareholding. It's a good and bad situation. People like their 6% return.
Yep.
But it's a little harsh on the bookkeeping and the accounting part.
I'm sure it is. Absolutely.
But essentially, I guess it's part of the manufacturing world, if you will. Like when we're asking about, okay, where's the balance, right? For me, like twice the size of tanks does not mean twice the size of employee requirements. So
Absolutely.
when you break it down on like time spent per batch or man hours spent per batch, it's about the same if I do twice the amount of beer.
Okay.
Right? Actually, the time is the same. The man hours are the same, which means the cost of the product is the labor portion of the cost is halved. That's true for the upstream side of things, if you will, from your oil sand side of things, if you're producing it. And then if you're packaging it, that's when you need a little bit more help. But those are generally the more affordable staff, if you will.
What does 5 years look like for you? Always going to be in the beer business? What's the big, hairy, audacious goal, if you will, kind of 5-10 years from now? What is Fahr Beer going to be when it grows up?
We are laying currently the ground, like the foundation for our 5-year plan. Part of it is more expanded distribution, right? We're looking at Western Canada and the States, maybe not so much Eastern Canada, but then we're going to give New Belgium a real run for their money when it comes to sustainability. So it's supposed to be a very sustainable brewery. We're doing regular donations to local causes, for example, the Boys and Girls Club, or like there was a skate park that they were building. And for me, it's important to be, because I have a big footprint in a very small town. I want, like, as a brewery, we want to be a good corporate citizen inside the community, right? So we are trying to give back where we can, if we can, and what we can. In fact, we've started discussions with the town council, because at a 25,000 square foot facility, you have about 20,000 square feet worth of solar panels. We could potentially power a very, very high amount of the Turner Valley residents. So that's part of the idea where we say, okay, like if you have to tear up a piece of ground, we might as well make use of the footprint that we have, right? So part of it is make excellent beer as we're doing already, make it even more consistent as we are already, but make it even more sustainable than we are already as well. And to do that, we are looking at reclaiming essentially every single waste product that we have in the brewery and turning it into either a product or remediation product.
What's an example of a waste product that you would have that you're working on or focusing on?
So, for example, we'll separate our domestic waste from the brewery waste water, right? So, well, everybody has toilets in their washrooms in their facilities, right? That's a separate waste stream.
Yep.
But then we have, like, a brewery uses a lot of water and has a lot of organics in their wastewater, in their effluent. We are about to sign an LOI with a local biogas plant to provide them with our liquid effluent from the brewery, which has a number of impacts. Like, we are not causing pressure on the sewer treatment plant for high BOD, but at the same time, the biogas plant is a highly water intensive process as well. But what they do is, if they take our brewery effluent, they can use the organics that are in there as a feedstock for their biogas production. And because it's a very dilute organic, they can use the water as a diluent in their process, which means they don't have to take up fresh water from the town or from the river or from a well or from somewhere else, which makes their operation more sustainable as well. They can also take our solid waste right now, so our when we dump the yeast from a fermenter and we the spent grain, that all is a feedstock for a biogas plant. We have a recycling initiative in Turner Valley that is currently looking at recycling, taking our plastic, PE and HDPE, PET and HDPE, and turning that into 3D printing filament. They're also trading in cardboard, so we can give them our cardboard. And I have a project with the UFC that I'm hoping to put a postdoc on catching our CO2 from our fermenters and feed it to edible algae to turn that CO2 that we create into algae and oxygen. And so that would be a complete removal of the CO2 from last year's atmosphere of the barley. Because when you think of, and this is technical now, but like when you think of our feedstock in the brewery, it's barley kernel or wheat kernel, right? And we are especially interested in the starches that are inside the kernel. Now, starches are a long chain branched of sugar molecules, and each sugar molecule has about 5 carbon atoms. That carbon is from last year's atmosphere because a barley plant, when it grows, uses photosynthesis, takes up CO2 and sunlight, and creates those starch molecules that we are interested as brewers. That we then use the barley's enzymes to cut down those starches into sugars, which we feed the yeast. And then the yeast uses those sugars and turns half of it into alcohol, ethanol, and the other half into CO2 that would otherwise bubble out of the fermenters right now. And when anybody does a brewery tour and they see like big bubbles coming out of a water bucket next to a big vat, that's CO2 coming out of a fermenter. That's the same thing as when your bread dough rises. We are looking to catch that and feed it to edible algae with LED lights that we power from our solar panels. And they take that CO2 and again do photosynthesis. And these algae are single cellular algae that can be dried and then used in smoothies as a superfood.
You go ahead. I'm going to pass on that one. We'll wait and see where that one goes.
It's already like the products you can buy it at Costco.
Really?
It's not ours, but it's the same. It's the same algae, if you will.
For you, that is fantastic.
So that's kind of like the pie in the sky plan for us.
No, I think it's fantastic. I met with a fella just last week, I think it was Friday, who's in the carbon business. But what I love about it is just the amount of time that people are putting into the care and attention of the planet. And I think it's marvelous to see the science of it behind just a simple beer and how we can all do little things in the right way to have a carbon neutral planet, if you will, or to have very little impact on it. So good for you. Congratulations. I think that's amazing. But before we wrap up, any parting comments or how do people reach you so we can get some free beer, free delivery? Not free beer, free delivery. Oh wait, we don't offer that anymore.
No, we stopped that one. Well, we have a Instagram account. That's probably our best, like most maintained one. It's a Fahr Brewery.
Okay.
And fahr.ca is our website. We're about to come out with a
Fahr is spelled F-A-H-R, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We're about to come out with a student beer of ours. So just a quick comment. We work for the Olds College, and I hire one first-year student every year. And like they go in the brewery through their program. So it's a 2-year program, and at the end of the 2 years, they have to put a beer to market chemical. That's they designed, they brewed on a commercial scale, and that we're about to bring that out in the next couple of weeks here.
And so is that for a student, or do you get to apply for that program? Not that I'd be any good at it, but who would be eligible to participate? Obviously, it's like Olds or UC then?
It's Olds. So Olds has a brewmaster program.
Okay.
And so like I generally help people when they I'm trying to get into contact with first year students. And then, for example, like the one that we just hired, she used to be at our tap room, like a tap room staff, and she discovered that she really wanted to brew. So she applied to Olds College. She got accepted, and now she's working in the brewery and not in the tap room anymore. So we were able to transition her from a essentially waitress job to a brewer job, right? And so in order for them to graduate, they have to produce a commercial beer. And so Colin, our second year student that's about to wrap up his program, he made a Kolsch. And so that's supposed to hit the shelves in the next week or two.
Any good? Do you like it?
It's pretty good, I have to say. Otherwise, I wouldn't talk about it.
Right, absolutely. So how long? I got to ask. We're going to run out of time, but that's okay. In making a beer, how many times do we fail to get the right taste? And I ask the question, guys, because when I work with my clients and I grow my business and I help them scale their businesses, we make mistakes all the time. We get better at it. We reiterate. We do it again. We do it different. How many times does a new person come in, right? You've got a second-year student now. How many beers did they attempt to make before they found the recipe that worked and that had the flavor and taste you were looking for?
I'll give you a tongue-in-cheek question back. Have you ever asked that question to a chef?
No, but I'm going to now.
Because cooking and brewing is essentially the same thing. As a brewer, what we do is we make a broth, a vegetable stock. And then the yeast turns the vegetable stock into beer, right?
Right.
So once you understand your ingredients, and I think a chef would say that too, once you understand how ingredients work together and how you balance flavors out, you have a very high probability that your beer works out in the first try. Having that said, right, like once you have the recipe, making a beer and following the steps isn't too overly complicated. But having that said, our Hefe, our wheat ale that made best in the world, before I started the brewery, I brewed the same recipe for about 5 or 6 years.
Right.
That was my grinding of my teeth and like sharpening my fangs, if you will, to like how to like develop recipes and what works with what, because there's 50 different malts available or more, way more, 100, 150, 200, I don't know how many hops varieties, 50 different yeast varieties on all your water profiles. It's the combinations are endless. And so what then the way to get around is to really understand what does an ingredient actually do. And how do you treat it to give you the perfect outcome, right? And I feel like that's also mainly the difference between European and North American brewing, but that's a little off topic. But essentially for brewing, what's really important is your technique and understanding your ingredients, right? It's exactly the same as cooking.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, with that, we'll sign off. Again, thank you very much for your time, and we will recap this real soon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.